Hello, everyone. The piano music you just heard is your signal to settle into your seats and prepare for the start of our worship service today. And before I begin, there are a couple of announcements. As you probably noticed, we did not have our normal Sunday handout today, but there are a couple of announcements to bring up. Next Sunday is Christmas Eve, and we will not have a 10:30 service. It'll be at 5 p.m., and this is Reverend Jamie's last sermon, so I'm sure they would appreciate any well wishes that we might be able to offer them as they start their new journey. Okay, now let us begin. Welcome to the San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whether you're here with us in the sanctuary or watching from home, we're glad you could be with us today. I'm Woody Hibbert. My pronouns are he, him, and I've been a member here at San Gabriel for about 4 years. Today, I'm happy to introduce our guest speaker, Eric Hepburn. He's been with us before. Eric is a friend of San Gabriel and a lay minister from Austin, and I want to thank him for being with us again today. And I like his outfit. Very appropriate for this time of year. I'm jealous. San Gabriel is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association. There's over 1,000 of us in the United States, and all of us together are working for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. Sustaining each other here in the community is the first step down that long road of important work. Now, if you'd like to learn more about us and keep up with upcoming events, please fill out the visitors info on the packet, seat packet behind you and in front of you, and sign up for our newsletter. And please know that whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, and wherever you are on life's journey, you're welcome here. Okay, let's start the day with a song. Now, our opening hymn is an intermingling of Silent Night, which is number 251 in your gray hymnal, and the hymnal Night of Silence. Now, please remain seated while Joe and Jackie play through the Night of Silence portion one time. Then when you hear the intro to Silent Night, please rise in body or spirit if you're able, and sing verses 1 and 2 that will blend beautifully with the Night of Silence. Now, I think Bill and Bob are going to be standing, so you'll know when to stand to sing. Start singing, right? You are going to do that, right, Bill and Bob? Okay, good. Okay. Jackie, Bill, Joe.
Good morning. As we light our chalice, we create sacred space together. We light this flame in honor of the birth of Jesus, a prophet whose teachings on the transformative power of love still challenge us to this day.
Our affirmation is an expression of our covenant with one another. Please read after me the words that are projected. The doctrine of this church is love.
We are here to love.
The quest of truth as its sacrament.
We are here to learn.
And service as its prayer.
We are here to care for others.
To dwell together in peace.
We are here to live in peace.
To seek knowledge and freedom.
We are here to honor our differences.
To serve humanity and fellowship.
We are all connected in spirit.
To the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine.
We are here to grow.
Thus we do covenant with one another.
This we promise to do together.
Okay, now it's time for our wonder box. And as you know by now, Karina's absent today, so you're going to have to guess along with me. Karina briefed me on this one, so I know. All right,
The gift
you
of
know the
nothing.
routine.
Written and
I'm shaking. What? Okay. Phone. Christmas cards. All right. Well, we're not getting any closer, so I will just open it up. And what we have is a present. Nothing is in it. Right, good. Somebody got tipped off, I think. All right. So was there really nothing in the box? And I think today's presentation, Karina's presentation, will talk a little bit about this, and then we'll get back to it.
The Gift of Nothing. Written and illustrated by Patrick McDonnell. Published by Little Brown and Company. It was a special day, and Mooch wanted to give his best friend Earl a gift. But what to get him? He had a bowl, he had a bed, he had a Chewy toy. Squeak. He had it all. Squeak. Mooch thought and thought. What do you get someone who has everything? Nothing. He would give Earl the gift of nothing. But in this world filled with so many somethings, where could he find nothing? Mooch often heard Frank say there was nothing on TV. But as far as Mooch could tell, there was always something on TV. Blah, 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 blah. Mooch often heard Doozy and her friends say there was nothing to do. But as far as Mooch could tell, everybody was always doing something. Millie came home from the store and said there was nothing to buy. So Mooch went shopping. Mooch looked up and down every aisle. He found many, many, many somethings. the latest this, the newest that, but as far as he could tell, nothing was not for sale. So Mooch went home and sat on his pillow and just stayed still, as cats often do. And not looking for it, he found nothing. So he went and got a box and put nothing in it. Then Mooch thought, maybe Earl deserves more than this. So he got a bigger box. Now that's plenty of nothing. Do. For me, said Earl. Mooch, you didn't have to give me anything. Who told him? Thought Mooch. Earl opened Mooch's gift. There's nothing here, said Earl. Yes, said Mooch, nothing. But me and you. So Mooch and Earl just stayed still and enjoyed nothing and everything. The end.
So was there really nothing in the
The
box? I think Mooch gave his friend Earl the gift of his time, and they sat together after the box was opened. And I believe Eric is going to expand on the gift of relationships today. And in the back, we have some things that will enable you to color presents that you would like to receive and give this year.
As you can tell from my sweater, it's getting close to Christmas time. I'm here to minister to you today about Jesus. Now, some of you probably felt the impulse to get up and leave when I said that. And some of you might have had the opposite reaction, feeling like, I just don't get enough Jesus in my life these days. If you think you struggle with the word God, you ain't seen nothing yet with the way we struggle with Jesus. So, in honor of his birthday, I'm not going to do some of the things that I've seen done. I'm not going to reclaim the pagan roots of the winter solstice, which I think y'all did last weekend. I'm not going to retell the biblical Christmas story and pluck out some allegorical or mythical lessons from the tale that are somehow disconnected from claims of divinity or virgin birth. What I am going to attempt is a serious reckoning with Jesus' core prophetic teaching. A reckoning that honors him as a human being who understood the transformative power of love and tried to teach us about it. Now, here's one thing, a provocative thing that I like to say about Jesus. Jesus' teachings were so radical and so profound that we spent 2,000 years trying to turn him into a deity, trying to turn him into a god as a way of avoiding following the teaching. And that's what I think we've done in Western Christian civilization. We turned a prophet who was one of us into a god, into a manifestation of God that we can't be. And we did that simply because we couldn't imagine or accept that we could live up to the kind of transformational love that he was trying to teach us. So we separated ourselves from him and we moved him up to heaven where he's nice and safe and made him into an idol one whose name we can intone as a secret password, to some the only password that gets us into the good version of the afterlife. Do you see what a distraction that is? He tried to tell us how we could love one another and create heaven right here among us. And we repaid that gift by misunderstanding him so poorly that we built a whole religion around him that frames the here and now as a means to an end. Our life, literally reframed as a test where we gain access to heaven if we pass, or we are sent to hell for eternal damnation if we fail. Now, that reading doesn't sound like transformative love to me. But we'll come back to that. So I've walked an odd path to this sermon today, and I want to share some of that with you, and I hope that you'll find some value in it. First, I think that you should know that I was born again in an evangelical Christian church, that I spoke in tongues and performed faith healings and received the gift of prophecy. And second, you should know that a little bit later in life, I was an equally fervent atheist. The path that brings me to your pulpit began when two things happened. First, I realized I was just as dissatisfied with proselytizing atheism as I had been with proselytizing Christianity. Second, I realized that there were true and worthy aspects of each of those experiences that I had neglected and that I needed to integrate and reintegrate into my life. So, one thing that happens when we reclaim Jesus as a human prophet, as a child of God, sure, but not more of a child of God than me or than you. One thing that happens when we do that is that it begs an important question about prophecy. If Jesus was a prophet, not the prophet, then perhaps he isn't as alone or as singular as we've made him out to be. It begs the question of whether there are other prophets in other guises with other missions and other lessons to teach us out there right now doing the good work. I'm going to draw this morning on the works of two others whom I find both prophetic and deeply aligned with Jesus' work on the transformative power of love. The first is Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of nonviolent communication. Now, Marshall, like Jesus, began with a deep cultural criticism. He says that our culture teaches us what he calls jackal consciousness. Now, a jackal's habitual way of speaking and thinking is, see if you can follow along with this list, judging, criticizing, analyzing, moralizing, and accusing. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Yeah. Jackal communication makes demands, and it seeks to blame, and it rarely leaves space for reparation. It just wants to be right. Now, giraffes represent the other end of that spectrum, and they are so named because giraffes have the largest hearts of any land animal. Now, giraffe consciousness attends to basic needs, yours and the needs of others. When a giraffe hears, they don't pay too much attention to the words, but they try to pay attention to the basic human needs that are underneath those words. For example, a jackal accusation, "You never pay attention to me," would be heard by a giraffe as, "I have a need for attention that isn't being met right now." And one of the first and most basic strategies that a giraffe would use is to mirror back that need. "Well, what I hear you saying is that your need for attention isn't being met." Where jackals try to get their needs met instrumentally and often accidentally sabotage their own attempts, since no one likes being manipulated, giraffes work, on the other hand, at getting clear about their own needs and at hearing the needs of others. They center a relational approach to mutual need satisfaction, looking for ways that everyone can get their needs met. This begins by getting clear about your own needs and the needs of others. And from there, in his own experience, Marshall Rosenberg finds that finding peaceful solutions is often relatively straightforward. Now, let's go back to our friend Jesus. Jesus saw a world full of jackals. Even the priests of the temple, blaming, accusing, moralizing, judging, threatening people with stonings and violence for breaking the laws. He saw how ineffective this was, how toxic it was. He saw that things could be different if we learned how to show up as giraffes instead of showing up as jackals. He saw that treating each other instrumentally got us nowhere except at each other's throats. He saw that building relationships of trust and understanding and love was a way out of the madness. We and our ancestors were, and for the most part still are, deaf as stones. The second person I want to talk about is Alfie Kohn, who's best known for his work on unconditional parenting and education, but whose broader work on the efficacy of reward and punishment is most relevant to our struggle this morning. Alfie engaged in a meta-analysis of all the research that we've done on punishment and rewards, where we had control groups who were neither punished nor rewarded, and where we did medium to long-term evaluations, not just short or one-time studies. So the short version reads like this: rewards and punishments both produce transient and unsustained increases in the quantity of work or compliance, and when measured, always at the expense of quality and engagement. He published those results in the book Punished by Rewards in 1993. And in the 25th anniversary edition of that book, which came out in 2018, he said in the afterword, 25 years later, that he still hadn't seen a single controlled study that indicated that systems of punishment or incentives produce sustainable positive impacts on either the quantity or quality of work. Much like Jesus and Marshall Rosenberg, more time has been spent ignoring his work than figuring out how to use it to make our lives better. What is surprising to most about this work is that reward systems, gold stars, financial incentive plans, you name it, they don't fare any better in the testing than punishment systems. Even verbal rewards like praise don't produce statistically significant positive results, although many studies measure significant long-term negative side effects. Here's one example. Programs aimed at children that issue prizes for reading have been shown to have a statistically significant negative long-term impact on students' interest in reading. Not only that, students pick books based on page counts and font size, and they retain less of what they read than children asked to read the same books without a prize. There have been similar studies on chimpanzees and other primates. They all show the same thing. The promise of rewards, food for example, either has no impact on performance for easy or moderately difficult tasks, or is likely to diminish task performance for tasks that are difficult or have high cognitive load. Essentially, we are wired to do problem solving for fun. And putting a reward between us and our puzzle is at best an insignificant distraction, and at worst, a detrimental one. So what does it mean? I think it means two important things. One, we don't like to be manipulated, and two, we aren't stupid. We can see when it's being done to us. A bit of an aside, in Alfie Kohn's research, he says there are two questions. I think about this mostly as a parent, although I have also been a manager of people, and this wisdom is applicable there. But he says we ask one question: what is it we want people to do? And that's usually pretty easy to answer, right? I want my kid to clean his room, like whatever it is. I want my employee to get that report finished so I can give it to my boss by the end of the day on Friday, right? What do we want people to do? That answer is usually pretty easy for us as we walk through life. But the second question, this question he says gets ignored, is we also usually, if we bother to ask, know why we want them to do it. And as a parent, you probably know, well, I really want my kid to want to clean their room. I want my kid to want to do well at school, right? And this is the part where the whole instrumentalist project falls apart. We've all been in that moment where we're like, man, I just need the compliance and I don't care about number two. And that's the moment. That's the moment where we prioritize short-term gratification over long-term relationship building. That's the moment. Because we have to care about number two. Number two is the job of coaching and mentoring our kids and colleagues and coworkers and each other. That's the part. That's the part where we do the hard work of building actual relationships, right? Anybody else notice that in this world we live in, it's easier to opt out of relationships than keep them going? I had a fight with that friend and it's just too much. I gotta walk. I'll go make a new friend until things get hard with that friend. And I'm gonna walk again. And then we wonder why our relationships feel shallower than they ought to. Maybe we're opting out of the work when we ought not. Maybe I'm just talking about me. All right, back to the script here. We know when we're being bribed and threatened. And as a general rule, we don't like it. We find it condescending and manipulative. So what's the alternative? It won't surprise you that it echoes the teachings of Jesus and Marshall Rosenberg. The alternative is genuine and authentic relationship. Trust is highly motivating. Trust does not get read as manipulation. It gets read as right relationship. We like solving problems for their own sake. We like doing good for its own sake. We like helping other people for its own sake. I know that there are some pretty pervasive and cynical narratives out there trying to convince you that this couldn't possibly be the case. They want you to believe that everyone else out there is this close to being all-out evil and killing you in your sleep just to steal your fillings. And most of us have been hurt. Most of us have hurt others. Sometimes in our darker moments, it feels plausible that we ourselves might just be evil, that we might be so broken that we shouldn't be trusted. But trust is an aspect of love that can heal us. Trust puts the unconditional back into the love that we need. I hope you'll pardon another weird aside, but this one's scripted. I'm going to give you this morning a ministerial treatment of cryptocurrency. Now, how many of y'all are confused by cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, all that nonsense? All right. Well, in an earlier part of my career, translating technical stuff into understandable language was part of my job, so here it goes with cryptocurrency. First, let's baseline with traditional currency. It takes about 2.8 cents in energy and materials to make $1. Now, as you might remember from Econ 101 in American history, the dollar is fiat money. That means it isn't tied to gold or anything else. It's tied only to your trust in the U.S. government. That's it. Now, in its simplest form, what is cryptocurrency? It is money created for a world without trust. It is money that is legitimized not through relationship and trust, but by instrumental rationality combined with energy-intensive algorithmic computing. So what does it actually cost to replace trust with energy? Well, it's estimated that one Bitcoin transaction takes 1,449 kilowatt hours to complete, or the equivalent of approximately 50 days of power use for the average U.S. household. So at average U.S. energy prices, that comes out to $173. So if we have a system of trust, we can spend 2.8 cents and get functional currency. If we have no trust, it costs us $173. That's a 620,000% increase. That's what a world without trust looks like. That's what it costs. All right, back to our main thread. Jesus, like Alfie Kohn, was a proponent of unconditional love, a proponent of solving problems through relationship and trust. Now, let's look at the religion they built about Jesus and ask if it's been true to his teaching. I think y'all can see where this is going, right? What is heaven if not the ultimate incentive plan? What is hell if not the ultimate threat of punishment? Is it any wonder that people are sick and tired of being bullied and manipulated by those who are promising to help them feel more connected? Is it any wonder that spiritual but not religious is the fastest growing religious category in our country? Now, I know universalists are of the no-hell persuasion, and we're rightly proud of that. But I have to ask, have we truly done enough? Have we really taken the message of unconditional love to heart? Or have we settled for softer versions of carrots and sticks? Here's what Alfie Kohn's research suggests about the likely impact of heaven and hell on spirituality. An emphasis on heaven as reward or hell as punishment is likely to have several effects. First, people will emphasize easy compliance over deepening spiritual practice. For example, get drunk on Friday, get drunk on Saturday, repent and confess on Sunday. Instead of seeking therapy or doing the work of a 12-step program to find some healing from the addiction and its causes. Number two, people will lose long-term interest in religion. To the extent that people feel judged and manipulated, they will continue to find their intrinsic interest in spiritual and religious issues decreasing over time. The more life is framed as a test, or worse, a competition, for the honor of heaven or the defeat of hell, the worse this will be. Third, people will be unable to have deep, authentic, spiritually centered relationship with their churches and each other. When the core practice is one of judgment, not of unconditional love, then that practice will eat away at the trust that is necessary for building loving and compassionate communities. All right, let's turn back to Marshall Rosenberg for just a minute. He tells a story in his book about a meeting with warring tribes in Nigeria. Gathered around the table were 12 chiefs representing the Islamic tribes in the conflict and 12 chiefs representing the Christian tribes in the conflict. And of course, they started off with jackal-style arguments. Y'all are murderers. You're trying to control us. Marshall listened and began to translate. It seems like you have a need for security that isn't being met. It seems like you have a need for self-determination that isn't being met. After a few hours of this, one of the chiefs, who had remained silent up until this moment, said, Marshall, if we learn to communicate like this, we won't need to kill each other. Well, amen. Praise Jesus and hallelujah. If we learn to communicate like this, we won't have to kill each other anymore. I know it's not a line from the Bible, but it is the essence of what Jesus was trying to teach us. If we learn to communicate like this, if we learn to love like this, if we learn to trust like this, we won't need to kill each other. We won't need to hurt each other. We won't need to live in fear. Amen, and blessed be. All right. We'll take a few minutes and a few breaths before we transition into our joys and sorrows. I'm going to invite my colleague Woody to come up and grab the microphone. Let's settle into our seats and give each other the gift of unconditional attention, which is a form of love, as we share our joys and gratitudes, concerns and sorrows. Now is a time for sharing how you are feeling, what is on your heart, what joys or gratitudes you want to lift up, what pain or concern you want to share. Let's create a circle of caring together.
I'm Mimi Ray, and I have a sorrow. I destroyed one of the tires of my car late yesterday afternoon. And my dear son-in-law brought me to church today, and it will give me great joy if somebody offers to take me home after church today. And I warn you, I live almost to Ronald Reagan out 29. If anybody is available to do that, thank you.
Our bad baby over there who's running around, he was born with all sorts of issues. He had 2 major surgeries before he was 2 months old, and he's been going to a high-risk pediatrician because they said that he would probably be behind developmentally. And he just turned 2 days ago, and they did a full 2.5-hour developmental assessment, and he scored an 18 out of 19. The average is 8 to 12. So he's not only, he's ahead. Yay! And wild. Yeah, that's for you, bud.
Plus, his Christmas outfit gives me joy.
Well, I can echo what my wife said about our son, but I'll also say thank you for your message this morning. I come from a very similar background. It's funny to think about. My dad was a pastor and a Pentecostal pastor, and I was born again at 4, which seems kind of strange thinking about, at this stage in my life, like born again when you're, innocent at that stage. In any case, it's interesting to have followed a very similar path, and I've been talking to him a lot recently about a lot of Alan Watts stuff and things along those lines, and it's just really refreshing to hear your message. So thank you. I know it takes a lot of, it's a hard topic to talk about, and so thank you for taking that risk and challenge.
Going once. Going twice. All right. As a meditation on the joys and sorrows we just heard, let us sing Joy to the World, number 245 from the Gray Hymnal. And it really has taken a lot for me not to belt out Jeremiah was a bullfrog. But I have been assured that that's not the version that we're doing.
Okay, we take an offering each week to sustain this space that we call home and to support the work of our fellowship. And if this is your first time, please feel free to let the plate pass you by. Your presence this morning is our gift. If you have filled out a visitor's card, you can put that in the plate as it goes by. Okay, our offertory music today is Goodwill to All. Now, this is an adaptation of a poem, Christmas Bells, written by Henry W. Longfellow, and performed by Bob Gehrman, Bill Hornbuckle, Joe Neesham, and Jackie Carish. Now, the offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you.
I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to us all.
I thought how as the day had come, the belfries of all Christendom had rolled along the unbroken song of peace on earth, goodwill to us all. Then in despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said,
For hate is strong,
and mocks the song
of peace on earth,
of peace on earth.
Then peal the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor doth God sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail. With peace on earth, goodwill to us all. With peace on earth, goodwill to us all. To us all.
We close our sacred time together when we extinguish our chalice. I offer you this reflection as a benediction. There were more babies born during the pandemic than there were people alive on the earth during Jesus' life. May we keep our eyes and ears, hearts and minds, institutions and spirits open to the new prophets born among us. Maybe the best way we can honor Jesus is to put those new prophets in the spotlight instead of the crosshairs.
Thank you, Eric, for being with us again today, and I invite everyone to greet Eric and during our coffee and conversation time. Don't forget to check your Sunday handout or the messenger. As I mentioned before the service, there is a 5 p.m. service next Sunday on Christmas Eve rather than 10:30 a.m. So be sure to show up at 5 p.m. All right. And please feel free to greet one another during the postlude music. And thank you again, Eric.